Hello, football fans. I'm Rich Gannon, and it is a football Monday. And so, you know what that means. Another edition of a segment we call Down and Out with our injury expert, Dr. David Chao. And, Doc, let's get right to it. Sunday Night Football, the injury to Dak Prescott, a thumb injury, could have him out for 6 to 8 weeks. Just walk us through what you saw and what we could expect to see from him in terms of the surgery that would be required to fix that thumb.
Yeah, I mean, right now, what we put up at sicscore.com last night has all been confirmed. And we started working on that before the end of the game. And it's a base of the thumb fracture. This is distinctly different than the Drew Brees ligament injury where he returned at 6 weeks. This is why we said minimum 6 weeks. Obviously, the thumb, very important to be able to grip and spin the football. And that's why Dak came out immediately. And the surgery will actually help to speed the recovery some. But 6-8 weeks is a reasonable estimate. Dak will be lucky if he can return October 30th. Then there's a bye. The first realistic goal is November 13th versus the Packers. So where will the Cowboys record be with Cooper Rush at that point in time on November 13th against the Packers? And the reason why, Rich, as you know, is the thumb is all important and be able to grip and spin the ball. You can't put a cast on it. You can't put a significant splint on it. And guess what? You have to have confidence, right, Rich, in being able to follow through. For the listeners, how many times in an average game would you hit your hand on a helmet or a hand or an arm in an average game? How many times?
Well, you try and avoid it, but it's bound to happen at some point. And it's just, it's the velocity with which it happens. Usually the helmet's the worst one, but it's interesting. We saw it last year, Doc, with Russell Wilson. It was his middle finger. But I do want to ask you, you and I had this conversation 2 years ago about Drew Brees' injury. And, we talked about how important the thumb is to the grip of the football and the rotation. What injury would have been better for Dak Prescott? Had he had the Drew Brees injury where it was back towards the back of the base of the thumb with the ligament repair, or this one where it's going to require the surgery up towards the tip?
Well, the better injury for Dak Prescott would have been his left thumb or his right or his right pinky finger, right? But Dak Prescott's injury is worse than Drew Brees' injury. When Drew Brees left that game, we were first to say 6 weeks, he'll be back, book it. Jameis Winston just has to hold the fort until then. Drew Brees, 6 weeks like clockwork, is back. This one for Dak, it's a fracture. It has to heal. There's more swelling. This is a little bit longer, and this is a little bit worse. You saw reports of Drew throwing the ball at 4 weeks, et cetera. At 6 weeks, he was really pretty good to go. So I would rather have Drew's injury than Dak Prescott's current injury.
Well, that's interesting. You hate to see great players get hurt early in the season. The former defensive player of the year in Pittsburgh, TJ Watt, he was having a huge impact on that game, Doc. He had a sack. He had an interception. He has the pec injury. Walk us through what that looks like. Is there surgery required, and how long could he be out?
Yeah, so TJ Watt, we'll talk about the bad news, the ironic news, and the good news, okay? The bad news is it appears he tore his left pec tendon as he was trying to bring down Joe Burrow and left the game immediately. The bad news is he will need surgery. The ironic news is his brother, Defensive Player of the Year, J.J. Watt, did the same thing in 2019. And the good news is J.J. Watt returned a little under 3 months for a playoff game, not fully effective for the Texans. But T.J. Watt, and here's the good news, his season is not over. He will be back, but in December. The question is, where will the Steelers sit in December without him? So bad news, surgery. Good news, his season is not over.
Some soft tissue injury early in the season with some receivers. Really no surprise there. These guys don't play in the preseason, so it is what it is. But let's start with your former team, the Chargers, and Keenan Allen. He left the game with a hamstring injury. What are we looking at there, Doc?
Well, we don't know the severity. I'm sure they're getting an MRI. But look, Keenan is not 22. Keenan is not a big body receiver. He relies on route running and getting separation. That's not a good combination there in terms of where he's at. I don't see, he's leaving open the possibility of playing, but I don't see how he plays on Thursday against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Another receiver with the hamstring injury. This one's really interesting, Doc, because you and I talked about his knee last week, and I'm wondering if there's any correlation between the knee injury and the hamstring injury with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Chris Godwin.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm making no criticism of Tampa Bay. Look, Chris Godwin, biologically, no way was anywhere near 100%. He just got his brace off. He was in a non-contact jersey. We talked about it on your segment on Friday. And what do? Not a surprise. Get him the ball first play of the game. Show that he's fine. And then use him as a decoy. That's exactly what the Titans did with Robert Woods. They got him 1 catch, 13 yards early, and then nothing else. But the difference was Tampa kept using him. And they kept saying, oh, look, I think he's good. There's no way he was 100%. He made a couple of nice plays. And on his third catch, awkward movement, maybe to protect his knee, compensation, and there's no way he's been full go. Whether it's an early season acclimation injury or compensation injury, it doesn't matter. Injuries beget injuries, and he left late in the first half, and I think he's going to miss this coming week too. You can't have a guy out there with a hamstring with already a knee that's not 100%. That's injury upon injury, and I think they'll learn from it and give him some time to get 100% healthy. But in the meantime, that's part of the reasons this week on Sports Injury Central, based on injuries yesterday, we actually, Rich, were 6-0 on injury props. Chris Godwin under, Robert Woods under, Saquon Barkley over, Ezekiel Elliott over, Tyreek Hill over, and Deontay Johnson with that shoulder playing with the injection hit the over with the overtime help.
No surprise there, Doc. I'm happy for Saquon Barkley, by the way. I want to see some great things out of him. It's been a tough couple of years dealing with the injuries. Another quarterback to hit on real quick. This one in New England with Mac Jones. I watched the play. I went back and watched it on tape. He's got a back injury. It was really kind of hard to tell from the tape. What did you see when you saw the tape?
Rich, you got to come and join our command center. We had 8-10 people out here watching all the games. And what's great about the command center here, and I'll have to show the viewers the command center, or go to @ProFootballDoc on Twitter timeline, and you'll see it. We have all the games going on, all the 9 games going on. And then we have the ability to assign someone to say, go find the video on Mac Jones's back injury. And what we saw is it happened on the roughing the passer play. And it wasn't a direct blow, so we were quite certain it wasn't going to be a fracture, transverse process fracture, or anything. More muscle soreness. And what we saw after that play, in retrospect, I didn't notice it real time with 9 games going on, is that he got very stiff on his back as the game progressed. And therefore, I think Mac Jones will be fine this week to play. Maybe miss a little bit of practice time. We all know he's going to be listed as questionable because New England, you have anything, you're listed as questionable. But I think he'll be fine.
Last one for me. We saw this injury as we were both watching this game last night between the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. Donovan Smith. It was hard to tell whether it was his wrist, whether it was his forearm, then it was his elbow. What did you see from that injury from the Buccaneers tackle?
Well, it looked like the main issue was a hyperextended elbow. And I was hopeful that he could return with a brace, but he never did. I think x-rays are going to be negative. And I think it's a short-term absence. I'm not guaranteeing he'll play next week, but it's possible. I don't know that he will need to go on injured reserve unless they saw something on x-ray that I'm not aware of. But, that was the issue yesterday, right? You started with the Cowboys with Tyrone Smith out at left tackle. Jason Peters not ready. Connor McGovern, the left tackle for the Cowboys, gets a high ankle sprain. And meanwhile, the Bucs with already problems on the interior, Aaron Stinney, Ryan Jensen out, Donovan Smith out. And before the game, we talked about it some. That was a 51 points, seemed like a lot with a banged up offensive line. That actually got worse. And obviously that under was ridiculous, 19-3.
There you have it. The very best injury analysis right here at betPARX.